Welcome to this tutorial. My name is Ian and now we'll be taking you through the tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to continue our journey with analyzing data with ChatGPT. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at a form of analysis called Pareto Analysis. So what we're doing with Pareto Analysis is that we often find that when you're doing business data analysis, you often find that a small percentage of something can contribute a large result. For example, you may well find that 20% of your customers contribute 80% of your sales. So you've got a small amount of customers that are contributing a relatively much larger result. Now, what you're meant to do with that is that if you focus on that 20% of your customers, you should get a much better result than if you're focusing on the 80% of customers who are only contributing the 20% of the sales. So in this tutorial, we're going to be taking you through that analysis, showing you how we can do that with ChatGPT. Now please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, keep up to date with all our latest content. But let's jump into the tutorial. I will see you there. Welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to look at one of my favorite ways of looking at data, and that's through Pareto Analysis. So Pareto Analysis, often called the 80-20 rule. So let's have a look and see how we can do that with ChatGPT. So we've got our sales data. It's the same data we've been using in the other tutorials. So if you've been following the other tutorials, you should be quite used to that. So the first step we're going to do is let's load the table and we're going to list the field names. So we'll just get ChatGPT to do that. Okay, so it tells me the table's been loaded successfully and we've got the list of the fields that we're working with. Now, when it comes to Pareto analysis, often what we find is that a small percentage of something can have a much bigger consequence. So if we look at our customer name, we've got quite a lot of customers in this data set. We've got about 795 customers. And we look at our profit. So it'd be interesting to find how many customers contribute 80% of that profit. Now, according to Pareto, we may find that only 20% of the customers actually contribute 80% of the profit. Now, if that is the case, then it means that we can actually focus on those 20% of customers who really contribute the majority of the profit. And the other 80% of customers who don't contribute the profit, well, we don't put as much energy and effort into them. Okay, so what we're going to start off with, though, just to show how we can get some calculations for this, we're going to look at the profit by our product subcategory. So we're going to add a calculation for the percentage running total and an index to that. So let's start off with that. So let's look at our product subcategory and we're going to create a table displaying the profit by product subcategory. Okay, so we're going to actually add a calculation to the table. And we're going to ask that calculation to do a calculate the running total percentage. Also, I'm going to add an index to this so we can just count the number of rows. So we're going to say an index calculate each row. Okay, so we're going to start off with a smaller table here. We're going to look at our profit by our product subcategory, and we're just going to see some of the basis for Pareto in action here. Okay, good news. We're starting with a table. So we've got an indexed. As you can see, it's starting to list out each of the product subcategories. It's got the profit value. It's got a running total value. And then it's showing me the running total percentage. And let's just let it finish up with all the information. Then we'll look at the table in a bit more depth. Okay, so there we go. We've got the final table here. So what you can see is it actually has put the product subcategory with the highest profit first, which is good because that's what you need for your Pareto analysis. You need to run the profit from highest to lowest. You'll also notice at the bottom here, we've got some negative values. So it means that we actually go past 100% of the profit and then we come back to the 100% because of those negative values. So that can affect the way that the calculation's been done. Let's start off at the top over here. So if we look at these first three product subcategories, you'll see that it's actually contributing around 60% of the actual profit. So that means that 40% of the profit is actually being contributed by all the rest of the items. So you can see we've got 17 items in total. So basically when we're taking 3 of them to have 60%, then we're looking at 14 of them contributing the other 40%. And actually, if we look over here, we can see that 5 items are actually contributing 80%. So in this case, 5 of the product subcategories are actually contributing 80% of the profit. And that's really what we're trying to understand with Pareto, is what is the number of items? And in this case, 5 out of the 17 items are contributing 80% of the profit. Okay, so we use product subcategory just to be able to get an understanding of this so we can see the table of items. Let's do this with our customers. So we're going to say display. So let's create a table displaying the profit by customer. So we're going to say add a calculation for the percentage running total. Sort profit from highest to lowest. Okay, so we've got create a table displaying the profit by customer, add a calculation for the percentage running total. Then we're going to sort the profit from highest to lowest. So let's accept that. Okay, so we're going to start getting a table. Okay, so this looks like it's working correctly. We've got the profit for each of the customer names, and then we've got the running total of the profit. Now what we'll see though is what ChatGPT does is that it gives me a ... Now this is telling me that there's too many records for it to display. So it's starting off by showing the truncated version of the table. So that's the way it will display this. However, if I was to export this information, it would actually then have the full table. So if I was to export this to an Excel file, I could open an Excel and you would actually see the full table. And then what you could see is you could see how many of the customers are contributing the 80% that we are looking for. However, there are a couple of other ways that we can have a look at this from ChatGPT. And we can, first of all, look at a graph and see if a graph gives us an indication of what is actually happening with this information. So let's start with the graph. And we're going to say create a graph. And we're going to say display the total profit. And we're going to say display the total profit by customer and the percentage running total. So we'll create a graph with that information. Okay, so there we go. We've got a graph, and you can see it's a very messy graph. The reason is because it's actually tried to list all the customer names at the bottom, which when you've got 795 customers, becomes a little bit messy. But what I'm interested to see is that I'm actually looking at the graph here. So you can see here that we've actually got the customer totals over here. So you can see that the profit for each of the customers goes down, and then you go, and now because we've got customers that are negative, it actually goes the opposite way around. Now, when it looks at the cumulative percentage, you can see that it actually goes across and it equals to 100%, but it goes over 100%. So to figure out where the 20% on this is kind of difficult because you've actually got the graph starting off at the bottom. So sometimes though, if you didn't have negative values, you would probably find that this graph starting at 0 would work actually much better. And then you would see where the interaction is between this graph line with the percentage running total, and then you would see with the number of customers. In this case though, even though if we were starting at 0, you would see that obviously a small proportion of the customers are actually contributing the 80% of profit that we're looking for. So this, I just wanted to show you as an example that we could use the graph. In this case, it's not really useful because of the fact of the negative profit. So what we are going to do is actually we're just going to ask ChatGPT how many customers contribute the top 80% of total profit. So that would actually then give us the answer that we're looking for. So we're going to say how many customers contribute the top 80% of profit. And again, like I've shown in the previous tutorials, I've misspelled the word contribute there, but what you tend to find is ChatGPT is really good at the fact of actually figuring that out and to know what I actually meant by that. You'll probably pick up quite a few spelling mistakes that I've used during the course of these tutorials, but I do like putting in the instructions as we're going along so you can see how quickly that these can be put together. Often as well, while I'm creating the tutorials, I might think of new ideas or new things that I want to add, and basically just type those in and see what happens. Okay, right. So we're seeing here 144 customers contribute the top 80% of total profit. Now we know we've got 795 customers in total. So if you took 144 divided by 795, you get the percentage. But again, let's get ChatGPT to actually calculate that for us. So we're going to tell it to create a table, and we're going to tell it to display. And I'm going to say displaying the number of customers who contribute the top 20, actually in this case, top 80% of profit. Then we're going to tell it to also show and the remaining 20%. We're then going to tell it that we want to add a calculation to calculate the percentage of customers. So add a calculation, calculate the percentage of customers. So basically what I'm saying is we're going to create a table. We want to see how many customers are contributing the top 80%, how many are contributing the remaining 20%, but then I want to see the percentage of the customers who are contributing that. Let's see if we can get ChatGPT to do that. Okay, right. So we're getting some response here. We're looking at the profit contribution, number of customers, percentage. So it's actually figured out exactly what I wanted. So it's telling me that we have 144 customers, which we already know, contributing the top 80% of that profit, but it's actually 18% of my customers. So almost in this case, our 80-20 rule applies. We're actually seeing that 20%, around 20%, in this case, 18% of our customers are actually contributing the 80% of profit. And that's really what Pareto Analysis is about understanding. So we're going to finish off. We are actually going to add just one more query to ChatGPT. We're going to ask it to look at the product names and understand and see how much percentage of the top product names contribute the top 80%. So I'm going to create a new table, and I'm going to say displaying the number of product names that contribute top 80% of profit and the remaining 20%. Okay, again, what we wanted to do is to add a calculation, and we're going to tell it to calculate the percentage of product names. Let's just correct that. And also in this case, I'm going to ask it to add the total profit as well. Okay, so let's submit that. Okay, so here we go. We're getting our table. Let's hope it's pretty much what we're expecting to see. Okay, so there we go. And this one shows us a bit more insight. So basically it's saying that the top 80% of profit is contributed by 57 products, which is only 4.5% of the total products. And in total, that's actually giving us $1.2 million of profit versus the bottom 20%, which is 1,206 products, is 95.5% of the product names, and that only contributes 307,000 total profit. So as I say, I mean, this is just demo data, but when you get into this type of analysis with your own data, it can be really quite insightful to sort of see how many customers or how many products are really contributing the best part of your profit. And really, those are the parts that you probably want to focus your efforts on. We are going to conclude the tutorial there. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.